So we have a special pod that focuses just on the nonprofit space, and they are exceptional at what they do.
Welcome to another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast, where we explore the ins and outs of the seven figure journey. My name is David Gilliland. I'm one of your hosts today. So excited to have Doug Porter with Rating Hub with us on the show. Doug, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to have, or good to be here.
Now you're calling out of
Yep.
Indianapolis, sorry, um,
Just north of Indianapolis, but yep.
just north of there, and you guys are the experts in the Salesforce space. Like you help people really like if you're doing Salesforce, you need someone who could come in and get the systems all working right, customize it so it really focuses on your kind of customer and really win there. And you, though you can do it for anyone, you really specialize a lot in the nonprofit space. You've really
Yes, we
learned
do.
how to do that better than most.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, my business partner and I had a vision. We both had 10 plus years in the ecosystem. We were working in enterprise level projects, multinational, multi-million dollar projects. We were cogs though in a machine, and it just didn't feel like we were really doing anything of value. And he and I had both worked in the nonprofit space a little bit prior, and we both have a passion for the little guy, right? We want to make sure that we can deliver value, and then by us delivering value, our clients are now able to deliver more value to the community.
That's fantastic. I love when we've got a purpose beyond just profits, but we find that doing great work is profitable,
Yes,
right?
it
And then
is.
those
Yes, it
profits help
is.
us do even more good. So,
That's right. That's right.
but Doug, when you, when you got started, you're like, hey, let's just kind of work in our basement. We'll figure things out, right? And we all kind of do that.
That's right.
But you grew to a point and you entered into this seven figure space,
Mhm.
and since crossing over that threshold, what
Yep.
have you learned? What's helped you now double plus from those days?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of pain to start with, right? As we grow with pain. Everybody was really flat against me, right? So basically, as a CTO, I'm also the technical guy in the room, and I lead everything from point of sale to point of delivery with our organization. And so every billable head under our organization reports up to me ultimately. Um, and initially, we were very flat. It was me and then a bunch of developers, administrators, architects that were working underneath me. We've had to set a pod model in place so that we can scale more effectively. So we have a special pod that focuses just on the nonprofit space, and they are exceptional at what they do. They know the nonprofit world, they know how to speak the lingo, they know how to relate to the clients that we need to work with. And then we have another pod that works on other focus areas, things like package development for other organizations, those sorts of things. And they do a little bit more technical work that's not necessarily specific to that. But essentially, in order to scale, in order to grow, we recognize that not everybody can report to me because I only have so many hours in a day. And when everybody's pulling at my threads, I can't be as productive as I need to be either.
So, so how does that pod work to develop your new developers or your new sysadmins and stuff? How does the pod function, not just in
Yep.
the getting the work done, but building your team for the future?
Yeah. So my business partner and I have always had this vision of a mentor and a mentee relationship there. So everybody needs to be a mentor and everybody needs to be a mentee at some point. And so by putting our focus on that relationship between the new developers, new administrators, new hires that we bring in, we can quickly scale those team members up and add them to the pod so that they can be and learn from the developers that have been around the ecosystem for a little while longer.
Nice, nice. And so that mentor has a job to check and see, hey, these are new areas you should be working in until they kind of certify and say they're golden. They're now ready to be a mentor themselves.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. We also established a program called the rehearsal program. We tie the RH acronym or letter base to a lot of our little functions and features of the organization. But the rehearsal program takes individuals who are maybe like 6 months less or less experienced in the Salesforce ecosystem, and softly trains them up through that sort of mentor-mentee relationship. And they start incrementally adding to their billable capacity. As a service-based organization, that's obviously the number one goal, is to increase that billable capacity, but without necessarily placing the pressure of um, being in front of a client immediately on new hire. And we found that we've placed a couple of individuals through that. It's gone exceptionally well, but we also want to scale that up, and we recognize that we can train people in the Radiant Hub way, in order to be the most efficient Salesforce developers under our umbrella of organization.
Very cool. It, I mean, it's an interesting challenge. We know that to grow, it's not actually, especially in the professional services, it's not about how much can I sell. That's a piece of the equation,
Yes, it
but
is.
it really depends on how well can I build a team that can fulfill that so well. Because a Salesforce customer will be your customer for life
That's right.
if you care well
That's
for
right.
them,
That's
right? And so
exactly
this
right.
is in
Yep.
perpetuity growing. Salesforce, if it's working well, is helping them close deals. They want more work. They have more need. So you have this perpetually increasing customer size out of one customer, out of each customer, if we can
Hmm.
care well for them. And and even every other industry, it's the same thing too. We just don't connect it so directly sometimes. So,
That's right.
huge,
That's right.
huge plus. You wouldn't have had time to develop each and one of these people, and not at the rate you've been growing. You could have like hobbled along doing the, we'll call it the apprentice style,
Yeah. Yeah.
apprenticing another. Um,
That's right.
but I imagine that's been a little harder, probably more demanding on your hiring side than it would have been otherwise too, because you couldn't just pull in someone who technically is bright. They have to be willing to work with and help somebody, right?
That's
That's
right.
not all the techies out there.
That's right. Yeah. No, it's almost impossible to find a developer who's just a developer and have them succeed as a consultant in the Salesforce ecosystem.
Yeah.
But being able to communicate well, and being able to develop are two entirely different skill sets, and not a lot of individuals have both. So hiring was definitely a challenge. We
Yeah.
had to find the right talent. I always said I'm a big football fan, so I said I need my front linemen to be able to protect me as the quarterback. Now I get to be the head coach and let my pod leaders go in as the architect or as the quarterback, but they've still got to have that front five to be able to protect them, and then the ancillary players to be able to go and make those big plays and execute well, and be efficient on all fronts there. So yeah, hiring has been, it's always a challenge to find the right talent, but in the service space that we play in, it's difficult to find reliable talent that is both capable of communicating well and technically proficient enough to be able to execute on the work that we do.
So that was one of the key things you had to master in order to grow from a million and get where you are today, and then to rocket launch yourself off beyond there,
That's
is to
correct.
attract, hire, and develop that talent in a scalable way. And so you've
Yep.
identified a few key things that have to be in all of your people. And then you set up a system where they are training and building each other and becoming ready to train the next, which, instead of adding, one person a quarter, which is all you could have done if you were doing the old, follow me around and I'm gonna be your leader. I'm gonna train everybody. You could have done one a quarter. Instead, you're able to, exponentially double, 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 right?
That's
Like take that
correct.
number and double it right on up each time.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, we have anticipated 80% growth next year. That's our hope and our goal. But that's a big number to to go from 18 or 19 heads to somewhere between 32 and 35 heads next year.
Oh.
That's a big growth.
And is that a pie in the sky hope, 80%, or is that a actually we see the path and it's pretty clear we have to keep up with that?
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, as you mentioned earlier, it's one thing to be able to sell and sell service-based organizations. It's another one to be able to grow them and maintain them. The good news is we don't typically have a whole lot of difficulty on the sales cycle because we do good work. And because we do good work, we're beginning to get a good reputation out there within the ecosystem. And so we're outselling our team, our
Mm.
coverage over and over and
Yep.
over again, which necessitates that growth. And so we have to be ready to look forward and scale appropriately so that we're not outpacing our service team, but also making sure that we don't grow so quickly that when if sales dry up, um, we have a bunch of people on the bench either.
Yeah, very cool. The it's not all of us have the sales buttoned down the way we want it to be. You're in a great spot, but that is a challenge in and of itself. Maybe we switch over here. We've already learned some wonderful things from you. Uh, uh, do you have a game plan? Do you feel confident in that massive growth, or are there questions in there? They're like, I'm confident,
Oh,
but
there's
here's the challenges I'm seeing. Let's work on these ones. Then we could use the time that way.
that's a great question. This is the first time I've ever done this in this capacity as an organizational lead. I've been through organizations with massive growth before, but as this being my initial opportunity for growth here, um, it's a little uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah, it
Um,
is.
and to complicate things more, my business partner and I bootstrap the organization, so we don't have funding from any outside funding sources. So the biggest challenge that we've had to date is making sure that we can bring in the talent early enough that they have time to grow and learn in the Radian Hub way, without having the overhead and the expense of that, and then multiplying that or exponentially increasing that with the growth that we've got. It's that's I think that's honestly the biggest challenge that we have is just maintaining that cash flow. And there's still, there's always a 45 roughly day gap between the first day of billing and the day that we actually get paid for the work. So, we've got there's a gap there also in funding, and luckily my business partner is the realist in the relationship here, and he handles all of our finances or most of them. So, I lean on him to tell me yes or no when we can hire new resources. But that's yeah. I mean, as an organizational lead, I don't know if you've seen other organizations be successful and scale that way, knowing that we don't have a product to sell, right? Our product is ourselves
Yeah.
because we're a service based organization.
Well, there's some advantages. I'm going to just push some things aside because you said the
Okay.
finance, you kind of trust your other guy on your partner in there.
Yep.
But one of the advantages of the professional services space is we actually get our money faster than others. You mentioned that 45 day, great. And you have opportunity in your current relationships where they're like, no, you're tight, you're with us, right? Like we need you, we love you, that you can negotiate different terms. Like
Sure.
you need a big upswing, we'll go get them, we'll bring them on. Here's the upfront that you'll pay and then pay the rest coming out so that we can build the team up. But once
Scale
they
up.
trust that you bring the right talent and do the work they need, a lot of times you can negotiate some different terms because they see you as like a staff extension in many ways.
Yeah. 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 That's exactly right.
And so just know there are some options in there, plus all the different financing based on, if you've got 45 days on there and how well you are with your receivables. Are you working with your bankers so they can see your projections and they see that you've met them over the past 2 years, and now they see you're doing in the future? Loans are a much cheaper way to take care of some of that growth financing than going out there and selling off your equity. You've got something, there's
Sure.
no reason to give it away.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So make sure your partner is spending some time with the bankers, not the tellers, the bankers, and that they are a
Okay.
part of your unofficial advisory board. They see and know your numbers, and you work with them.
Okay.
That'll give you a foot ahead. Now let's get into this. So yes, have we seen absolutely growing in the professional space? Yes, across so many different professionals. Um, there are some things that some people don't realize that they may get over, ahead of their skis just a little bit, over on the fronts, a little too far, and that is one, as your team size grows, um, your pods are a great little way to let them be a force up front here.
Mhm.
The next question is who else is being developed to be your backup quarterback or call maker, right? Who
Yep.
who else is how are we helping this team not just be great doers here, which we need, but to help enough of them to think strategically with us into the future as we grow? So that's one piece. You're going to start to run into more challenges in that. Um, the second piece, and how do we co-create that future? So you don't have customer issues coming to you right now. That's great. The pods are doing a good job on that. I love that. But you're going to have so many other issues and questions coming that you'll be a bottleneck for. How do these two departments work together better? How do we get this? Now we're selling at this level. How do we hand off the sales faster, cleaner? It used to be we're all hanging out in the same space. Now we're kind of bigger, broader, maybe spread out, right? All those things start adding these complications. And it all, in operations, it all rolls up to Doug,
That,
right?
that's correct.
And so
That's
we need to
correct.
have more people enabled. So think pods, if you will,
Mhm.
around strategic issues, around solving growth challenges in your business. Do I have a
Mhm.
front line for that? And that's going to be one of the key things for you. Can you, and it happens for every company between about 25 and 35 employees, your number one thing that's going to hold your growth is, can I build enough leaders fast enough? Because you found you can get talent. Now,
Yep.
can I get leaders fast enough? Building
Yep.
that talent to that, and then two, can we keep the culture, the essence of who we are, alive,
Mhm.
pumping in everyone when I can't touch them all anymore. Doug cannot make the rounds to everybody anymore, so other
That's right.
people have to carry the banner, and those are two major issues in the growth of, as you approach that 25, and then as you try to move from there and go up to 100, right? This is going to be the big thing. You get that, you're going to see an ability to do a lot more growth again.
Mhm. Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense.
So what do you want to know about the details? Because we might as well do
So,
something. Let's get some work done.
yeah, that's a great question. So as we look at in professional service, obviously everything is project based for us. So um, we have I have a VP of project management and I have a VP of architecture. I one for each pod. I have a VP of architecture for each pod and a PM VP of project management. Naturally, they make sense to be our core leaders, but they're all project focused,
Hmm.
right? Um, what roles am I missing that are going to obviously creep in over the next 10 to 15 employees?
Yeah. So let's first say, do you have you listed out like a future organization chart, if you will?
Yeah,
It's like drawing a
yeah,
blueprint for your house
yeah.
before you build. So you've got that out there. Have you already built that?
I have one. Yes.
Great. Then ask yourself this question. This is just on the people support. Then we're going to get to the strategic side. On the
Okay.
people support side, look at it and say, no more than, let's say, 5 to 8 people that one leader is supporting on the regular.
Mm-hmm. That
You
makes
got
sense.
those
5 to 8
numbers
seems about
working
right.
out?
Yep. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. It's actually less than that right now, but yeah, eventually when we get to 40 employees or whatever the case might be, yes, that 5 to 8 is about the right number.
Great. Because those 5 to 8 people, they want to have somebody who's dedicated to making long-term plans for them and their growth,
Hmm.
following up on a weekly basis how they're doing, both in doing their day job and in growing and becoming the kind of person, employee, leader that the company needs and that they want to do, right? Aligning company vision and the employee's vision. They're going to have somebody who's supporting them and helping them and thinking through that on a weekly basis. And then you start saying, well, that could be like 4 hours of their time every single week. Like, yep, that's a half day just to support the team. You
Yep.
get more people than that, and it starts to be really difficult to then do the work to bring the resources and all that. So think that. If you've got that, great. You don't need to add additional leaders. Some people are like, oh no, I've got like 13 people reporting to someone. That's not any good. You're not actually building anyone.
That's right.
But this other side of the strategic side, when you're at this size of an organization, I would think that you and your partner well, I'm saying when you're 30, you and your partner and probably two other people are going to need to be sitting at that executive table, maybe three, right? Um, that's enough to represent well the rest of the team
Hmm.
and to lead out well. And, someone's going to be holding the finance spot. Maybe that's your partner. Someone's going to be
Hmm.
holding the sales part. Maybe that's still your partner too. It starts to stretch them a little bit to be doing both the sales and the finance, right?
That's right.
There may
Yep.
be a change there at some point. I wouldn't necessarily recommend a CFO, not that early, unless you feel like you have the cash freedom to do it. Normally, I would wait until you're maybe 6, 7 million revenue to where I could
Okay.
afford one. And then I kind of want a controller. I don't need a CFO for a long time, but a good controller I do, right?
Sure.
And so start thinking through that. And that would be someone in that group that has some accounts receivable people cranking away potentially. um, you'll have someone doing the sales, like I said. You have somebody running and overseeing operations, or maybe it's product and service because you do have a product when it's right. That's
Sort of. Yeah. I mean,
when
it's
it sits
us,
out
right?
there and it's a widget. They built it that people then buy and buy and buy. Right? That's a
Yeah.
product.
Yep. Yeah.
Different thinking, different planning cycles, probably different leaders, right? And you've got your pods built around that, so it makes sense. So
Hmm.
that's enough for that executive lead. But you're like, but wait, they're spending all their time running projects. Yeah. So let's just carve out time for them. This is what I suggest. And, maybe you're already doing some of this. Do you pull them together on a quarterly basis right now to have them think about things outside of their department and think about what's happening in your ecosystem that you're functioning in, and in what's happening in the hiring realm, right? And all of your area that you plan on playing in, what's happening in tech changes, what's shifting around in social, economic things that may be there, all political things that could shake up what's happening. Just thinking broadly, having that team learn to think that way with you starting today is a major play.
Okay.
So on a quarterly, we suggest let's give them an opportunity to think bigger than their departments, bigger than their projects. And then together, let's learn how to ask the key strategic questions that will help us get from now until the end of our 2 or 3 year mission and goal that we have set. Let them think about that. Let them pitch ideas. Help them come up with all these questions. And you see all these strategic questions. Man, now they're starting to see, wow, there's 1,000 things we could be doing. You're like, welcome to business ownership. That's how we see it.
That's right.
Now, together, pick some, narrow it down. That's called welcome to strategy, where we learn to say yes to the few things that have to be done to win and no to so many good things, so many features we'll never actually build and work on. Right?
That. Yeah.
So many
Yeah.
pieces that we're like, we know it's great, but this is better. And we
Hmm.
all together choose the better. Then someone on that team, could be you, could be one of these other leaders you have, gets to own that priority, the quarter. and they get to build a team from people from other pods, from other places, not to quit their day job. They still all have to do their projects. They're still doing their day job, but they're allowed now to do an hour or two or three in a week working on the cool stuff, working on the priorities, the top priorities for the business, and getting that kind of visibility with Doug, with his partner, with these others right there. They're being
Sure.
seen and they're being given a chance to lead without a leadership position. That's
Okay.
building a
I like
bench.
that.
Okay. So there's
Yeah.
a thing you can start doing at the cost of some time dedicated. That quarterly, they've got to have it cleared. No project work for that day. That one quarterly for the five of you, no project work that day.
Hmm.
And then the sub team, they're going to have an hour and a half that next week where there's no project work. They have a new client, and that client is Rating Hub. And they're building a system and a solution to solve Rating Hub's biggest strategic issues. Okay.
Got
They're
it. Yeah,
building the
that
plane you
makes
need to fly
sense.
on. And
That makes
that
sense.
becomes their pod for a time that disperses after a quarter, right? It just
Sure.
disintegrates. New ones brought together. Could be some similar team members, maybe totally different, but they do a sprint and then they're out. New
Got
priority
it.
or the next phase of the same priority. New hands, new ideas, taken to the next level. Probably some continuity, but you get the idea.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a fantastic idea, and it's a great way to empower the team members of the organization. I imagine that also bolsters confidence in in their abilities as well.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the advantages. I mean, you nailed two of them. Builds the individuals, builds their confidence. It also ensures implementation.
Mm.
Isn't that the biggest thing when it comes to like software changes and stuff like, well, we've done it. Now will the team implement?
Yep.
Have the team design the very thing that needs to be implemented by them in the future.
Yeah.
They're the last ones to let that fail
That's
because
right.
this was their baby, right? Their face is
Yeah.
on it, their fingerprints are all over. Implementation happens.
Yep.
It gives you and others an opportunity to see and test them out for leadership roles. That's a big key thing. They don't need to be promoted to it first. Test them out, try things out.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you lead this meeting? Let's see how this one goes. Like we've got to get our, this week we have a stand up. It's 10 minutes a week or 15 minutes every other week. Red, yellow, green on we call them smarts, the subtasks under the big priority goal. How are we at? Red, yellow, green, red, yellow, right? Let's go through that. You stuck? What kind of resources do you need? Who can help? Boom, moving forward. Now they got to lead a team like that. Well, that's kind of fun, right? They're starting to envision what it looks like at the end and make a plan towards it instead of just show up, clock in, clock out. That's a
Yep.
big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And it feeds right into the whole mentor and mentee relationship.
That's right. It
Yeah.
feeds what you're
That
already
makes sense.
building.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
right.
anyway, there's some ideas to get you started so that you don't get stuck when you hit your 30 because enough people weren't part of thinking about that and doing it. Um, that's a big play. The loyalty goes through the roof because now the business is theirs. Their fingerprints all over it,
Yeah.
right? They
Yep.
love it.
That's right.
And so there's an idea. Uh, there are ways of running that quarterly offsite that looks like keeping everyone on the same page, holding them accountable. Then there's ways of doing that looks like we trust you. What have you got in you? And opening up possibilities. And so if you think in more of a visionary leader style of what can we become and how much I trust you and what we're building and learning to hold back and let more of them step forward, uh, then you have a chance to see exponential return out of each individual instead of just by your hires and calculated this is how much they can do. So that's a difference between a leadership kind of way versus a management kind of way of doing the same meeting while you're doing
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, that makes
it.
perfect sense.
Yeah, you know it because you were in those bigger, stuffier ones that were all managing you left and right. And
That's right.
you and your partner are like, there's a better way. Yeah, there is.
Yep.
And you can use it this way too. Anyway, is that enough for you to kind of be dangerous and start moving
Yeah.
forward a little bit?
No, that's perfect. Thank you for all that information.
Welcome. I'm excited to see what you guys do. I love again that you're building something great and that you've chosen to do it in a way that adds value, like to the community. Like, who focuses on nonprofits? Not too many. And who does it profitably? Just Doug and his partner, right? And so you guys are doing great things, and I love that. If anyone wants to, now I don't know if you're geographically tied, probably
Nope.
not. If anyone wants to really amp up their Salesforce presence, especially in the nonprofit space, how would they get in touch with you, Doug?
It's a great question. So they can go to our website, radianthub.com, or they can reach out to me directly at doug.porter@radianthub.com. I'd be happy to have a conversation.
Fantastic. Thank you again, Doug. We really loved having you on the show. And this wraps up this episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. If any of you listening found value in the things Doug shared with us or the journey that he went through and learning a few other things, please like and share and get it to other seven figure business owners so they too can benefit from it. Until next time, keep striving, keep growing, keep learning, and keep caring.